Right now, we're working from home, in our kitchens and on our dining room tables. What we want to do is lift everything off the table and into a successful home office. Whether you have a small or large space, we want to give you the tips and tricks to help you be successful. We're combining our shared industry expertise to help you be more organized, more productive, all while looking good. In each episode, we'll help renovate their home office workspace. Our mission is for you to be the best and most productive you, all while looking good. Hey everyone, we are here and recording our second session with the lovely Carol, and it's myself, Najeeb, with Dolores, and we are doing the home office renovation series, or what we like to call Home Office for Success series. So we have Carol joining us. Carol, welcome.
Thank you.
We're so thrilled to see your space and see what it could possibly become. But first, let's get to know a bit more about yourself. Could you just share a bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I am based here in Austin, Texas, and I am a freelance software developer and consultant.
Wonderful. And if you can just share a bit more about your work, obviously you're working from home, but what does that entail? Are you on video often? Do you do any recording? Just a bit more.
I am actually not on video for work. I am on video for all my extracurricular outside activities. I do get on Zoom for calls, but actually the last contract that I finished, we never were on video. No one asked for it. My partners, nor did the client ask for that. So we just dialed in, just using the conference call capabilities of Zoom.
Gotcha. And could you share just a bit more about the space and perhaps show around what it looks like?
Sure. So I have lived in my home for a little over 20 years, and shortly after I graduated from college, I was blessed to buy this house, and I've been in it ever since. And, outside of college, I was very young, and I wanted to do things myself. I painted the room myself, so it's not very professionally done. I chose a dark color because it happened to match this bulletin board that I loved, and pretty much it stayed the same way for the past 20 years. I think more of a college field, but definitely not very professional. And as I've been embarking on, working for myself, I would like to update the space to bring it up to what I would consider a bit more professional, more modern, and make it more conducive to actually wanting to be in my office and working. As my pictures have shown, and I think I detailed when I answered the questionnaire, it's a combination room. Like I call it my study, but I don't think it really evokes that feeling because I also do a lot of arts and crafts. So there's a lot of my arts and crafts supplies here. I have a lot of books. There isn't one, I think, function that you get out of it, and it could be multi-purpose, but it would be nice if it looked more professional. So that's where I'm hoping that you, as the professional designers and the architect, can give me a good design and some suggestions.
Yeah, definitely. And could you
just to ask a quick question, when you're working, how long do you spend at your desk or whatever? How do you work?
It depends, because I have all these other activities. I may only work, an hour or two at a time, then I go do something else and I come back. So my day length for the elapsed time for work is pretty long. So I have thought about changing that, but I have yet to sit myself down and heads down for a while to get it all done. So,
gotcha.
But I definitely don't sit.
You do what's comfortable for you and productive. So you like to work, take a break, and then come back. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
I do.
That's fine. That works. If that works for you, then.
Yeah,
and you're gainfully employed, I guess there must be some success in the methodology. By the way, it's a large room, and you have more space than most people do in their offices, so good for you.
So here is the entryway, and I actually love keeping the blinds open because I love looking at my flowers, and while there aren't any birds visiting, when I did have bird feeders up, it was lovely just seeing the birds. I could glance over there every once in a while and just have a different view than my computer monitor. And so I do have, bookshelves lining both sides of the window. Here's just an IKEA chair. And this is the lovely craft table where I do all my crafting. And then, of course, I run and I golf. So there's golfing and running memorabilia there. And this is basically mostly my crafts, and I have other craft supplies that are stuffed elsewhere. That's all that I could fit there. Here is the main work area where I have a couple of computers that I work from and a monitor, and then other memorabilia. And then here's where I currently have stuffed my scanner, printer, and then I have other laptops down there. And then on this wall, I have even more books. And then a wall with just other personal items.
Carol, what's in the closet?
It's filled with stuff. I wondered if you'd want to see
clothes stuff. What kind of stuff?
There are boxes. There are craft supplies. There's a small 2-drawer filing cabinet. It can be pared down. I just have not pared down. I just keep stuffing things in the closet.
And what else is on the wall? I see a few frames.
Have, this is my version of a whiteboard. It's a whiteboard contact paper so that I can use the dry erase markers to write notes and erase them. And then on the wall, yes. No, I haven't used it very often. Here are just some of my running bids from races that I ran years and years ago. I still run, but I don't keep them anymore. And so that's a framed puzzle. And then there's just some caricature drawings of my running or my tennis and my golf. And then just
very sentimental person.
Yes, memory board.
Nice. Okay.
So this is the one room you've dedicated to your work and your crafts, and then the rest of the house is the house?
It is.
It's a large house, by the way.
It is. I'm certainly open to moving items around so that it is just an office. I do have a guest room, which does have a bed. It has a dresser. It can be repurposed to be just the crafts because it's just myself living here. So there's no one living in there. So it does not need to, it can be multi-purpose for sure.
What we have is just some of the images that you've sent us and the floor plan. So obviously we're focused on that element right there. So again, it's kind of like the windows over here. And is this south facing window?
It is not. That is actually east facing.
Okay, gotcha. So
does it get toasty in the morning, or because of all the tree coverage, you're okay?
I am okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I face due east, and it's like an oven in the summer. But I'm on the 6th floor of a city's and unobstructed view, so it gets quite toasty. Najeeb, how can I draw on this? I don't.
Carol, this is what we have is your existing kind of setup, right? So you have the door, you have the closet, your current table, although they're kind of a bit, I mean, there's really 2 tables, but it kind of goes towards it.
Yes.
You have the 2 chairs, the bookcases here, and you have the window. So this is kind of like the light kind of representing the daylight that kind of comes in, right? So this is kind of your current setup. And what we'll do now is we'll kind of use this space as starting to redesign what the new space would look like. So Dolores, I'll let you kind of take a lead.
I'm going to draw with a pencil, and then Najeeb always likes to make it a little bit more formal, which is more readable. I'm old school. So first of all, let me ask you, Carol, what is it that you want to dedicate the room to? Do you want it to be more of a work room, multifunctional, or crafty?
I would like it to be more work oriented so that I can feel more motivated to work and be productive in the space. So I think, if I had a more conducive environment, I would concentrate more, and I would actually overall be more efficient. I think part of why I do take breaks is because I don't concentrate as much as I should. And so I have so many other things I want to do. And so I go off and do that. But I think if I were in an environment, whereas, if once previously when I was going into the office, well, all I did was work, right? And so I had an environment which simulated an environment which I felt compelled to work, I would be more productive with that time, and I could be more efficient instead of breaking up my day. So
one of the layouts that I enjoy is, as you can see here, in front of the window.
Mhm.
And then in this case, you can put 2 tables beside you.
okay.
So let's just, so 2 tables. And then right now what you have is like a hutch arrangement, right?
Yeah.
On your existing.
Yes.
So if you wanted to, you could have a hutch. I've drawn it too far away from the wall, but nevertheless. So you could have a hutch on both, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you want new furniture or whatever.
I'm open.
And you said that Zoom is not a huge deal for you, but if you wanted to, I should sit up straight, you could have the whole room a series of tables and or bookshelves. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then you can be as artsy and as worksy as you want. You could even have another arrangement over here. But if you were doing a work, you could have your computer here, and then printer, scanner. So everything could be at desk level, 29 inches high. And then again, you'd need to, you could always even remove the doors if you wanted to, by the way. And have it even more open. Yeah, there's another arrangement that I'm thinking of that I'll discuss later.
Okay.
But nevertheless, if you did it here, I like looking out the window. So I face out the window. Right now I've got a lot of lighting, as warm as it is, facing me. So there's enough room on my desk to put some lighting, table. I have color balance light and a torchère as well. But if you kind of did all this perimeter thing, it starts to open it up completely, and then you could look outside to your little birdie.
I like the idea because I actually temporarily, probably a couple of months ago, for about a month, I actually used my rolling desk, which is in my other room, and put my laptops on it and sat in my living room to work because I have a whole wall of windows and the desk was right against the windows so I could look out into my backyard, which has a lot of trees and is very pleasant to look at. And so I liked looking outside because I could see my monitor and then look around and see all the trees. And so I like that idea. I've never thought about it for this room.
Yeah.
Because what happens too is that you really need to take your eyes away from the screen and look outside or look at a distance of another about 5 or 10 feet to exercise your eyeballs and then go back.
Okay.
So you need to do that on a regular basis because, as I mentioned, it exercises it and it reduces eye strain as well. Yeah. So if there's something that's nice to look at rather than just facing a wall all the time, I find that I do that sometimes for sketching over here, but I try to minimize that. I always find that I like to go back to my desk and then look at outside and contemplate life and laptop and then contemplate life or sketch because I still do a lot of things sketching old school, drawing.
I love paper too. I have a paper planner and lots of sheets of papers and journals everywhere. So.
Well, I love designers love grid pads because they're at 1/4 of an inch and then you can sketch away and do that sort of thing. So that's my life. Planners, I find almost too formal. I end up tearing out pages and nothing, something gets lost eventually. So I like the planner. So in terms of that, that's one of the areas that we're looking at.
So the other thing is based on your range, because I know you have the laptop and you have the secondary screen. You can kind of have the 2 screens over here, or you can have the laptop on a dock and have one giant monitor as well.
Okay.
And if you do that, so this kind of cone is kind of like the viewing angle from a camera. So if you kind of look at where, so I'm just going to bring this to the front. So you can kind of see where it would see. So basically people would kind of look at all of this background. So if so they would kind of see a bit of your hobbies in the background over here. But if there is something you don't want them to see, you can kind of hide it away from view, but it's always accessible. That's nearby. And because the camera is over there, you have like a good lighting directly in front of you. And then you don't necessarily need to because you have that such a large scale lighting. But if you want to kind of have like a secondary light source, that kind of gives you like a bit of like a drama to kind of create more. Why is this not working now?
Well, we were thinking too that if you wanted to zoom, you might get one of those LEDs. What are they called? Najeeb, properly?
Like ring lights.
Ring lights.
Mm-hmm.
And that acts as a secondary light source as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it depends on. I actually enjoy lighting when I'm working on my laptop and screen. I don't like to have just the screen lighting. Working just with that, because that I find, and then are you complete with that, or did you want
yeah,
to?
so you can kind of have that on the sides if you want,
okay.
or in the back, because what it allows you to do is just have a secondary lighting. So if you're looking at myself right now, I have windows in front, and I also have like a secondary window to the side, and that gives you a bit of like just a bit more of a contrast instead of getting this like giant light just directly in front of you. So that's like an option you can do, and you can do it on either side, either over there or there, because you have that that large lighting that's coming in from here, if that makes sense.
There's different types of lightings. There are torchères, which light up and then the light bounces down, or else you can have like you said, the ring lights. You can have a table lamp. You can have all sorts of things. There's lots of ways of introducing lighting. And then it depends on the amount that you want to invest as well. So I sometimes install a lot of LED strips in the furniture to light up the objects. So Carol, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at my website. I did an office suite for an architect, and I love the use of cubbies.
Okay.
So and I'll tell you why. Cubbies, any price point. Cubbies are more or less squares, and so whatever you put into them, be it books or sentimental things, mm-hmm. It organizes them automatically.
Okay.
There's also what called cognitive dissonance. You can pick out whatever you want at the time. We tend to group things in groups as opposed to alphabetical order. What makes sense for people is grouping things in like groups. So if you have a running cubby, you have a arts cubby, you have different types of cubbies, and it's all of a sudden it starts to elevate the mess from a mess to an organized thing that actually looks artistic in such a way. So any price point has them, IKEA, whoever, and it just makes everything look organized and nicer to look at because it's already organized in these little cubes, right? So you've got a little bit of that, but like I said, if there was a cubby here, if that was sectioned off. So what you see behind me.
I like that. I noticed that when we first got on. I was like, oh.
Well, this is custom for me, but the first thing that I did is mind you, like I said, you could do it at any price point, but these are floating shelves. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's almost like your hutch. So if you were eliminating the bottom of your hutch, if you were eliminating these and just stack these on, but quite honestly, you could do this whole, I guess I need to change the color of the pencil. This whole thing could be cubbies. Again, you can buy a IKEA and just screw them into the wall. Since this is your own home, mm-hmm. you can do whatever the heck you want and then patch and paint later. But mm-hmm. I have to say so with cubbies too, what I have behind me too is a bulletin board. Since I just painted myself as well. No, I had somebody paint it, but since I just had everything painted, I had the bulletin boards painted the same color as the wall.
Okay.
And so the bulletin board's under a cubby. So let's say you put a bulletin board here, then you can stick and tack and do whatever the heck you want and it still looks pretty. And then you have everything on top. So I'm a big, big fan of cubbies. It just seems to so I haven't organized them as well as I'd like to, but nevertheless, you get the idea, right?
Right.
And then above the wall, you've already done it a little bit of. So you just need to group things and then almost like a tablescape or everything that you do is a tablescape, a landscape, or a bookscape. Everything can be stylized. And then, quite frankly, once it's done, you don't have to do it again. And then with cubbies, you can take and leave whatever you want.
So if I adopt the suggestion of putting the desk against the window and having desks all the way around, would you recommend the cubbies along the long wall, which you just penciled in, and cubbies like on the side of the windows, or just cubbies on
so
the
for example, if this is a table,
Mm-hmm.
you could put cubbies right here.
Ah, okay.
Fix them to this wall right here.
Okay.
Or you can fix them. That's if you wanted the table surface as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy a hutch, or I like cubbies because they float underneath. So all of a sudden this whole area becomes its own little zone.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to, you could put cubbies over here. You realize, of course, I'm drawing them above, right? So,
Right.
yeah. And personally, I like rolling filing cabinets that tuck under tables, or else you can have the tables with drawers underneath. So that configuration can look a whole bunch of different ways. And then if you wanted to, you could remove the doors, and then you could put a table in here with shelving, or just put the whole thing full of shelving, as opposed to just stuffing it, right? So it opens up the room as well.
I was like, I hope they don't ask me to open the closet doors, because it's its own
all good,
room.
yeah.
No, it's all good. Believe me, I know that a lot of these things take effort. Now, if you're really handy and wanted to keep the furniture, you could paint everything yourself, right? And we could put colors in a minute or two.
Yes. An idea that I had, I have been handy in the past. I built my own bookshelf, which is now in the garage, and I did stain that. The idea was that I would stain all this furniture. It's all unfinished except for the IKEA desk, meant to be stained, which I never took the time to stain.
So you like natural wood as opposed to painted wood?
Well, no, it's just I thought it would be great that I could, choose my own stain color and, have some hand in the furniture staining.
In the creativity of it.
Right.
So another layout, mind you, it's a bit too, well, the way you've drawn it, it's a bit too close to the door, but what some people do is they'll put a desk here.
Okay.
And then tuck this whole thing away, and then shelving up here.
Okay.
And then the whole thing is a work area, and it's tucked away, and then the rest of the room becomes something else, whatever you want it to be, right? Again, because you're crafty and you like to do a whole bunch of things, I would just do a nice wraparound and then have another. Well, mind you, you've got a loungy chair that you like to use, so that takes up a lot of room. So the loungy chair could go here. I don't know. Do you use the loungy chair for reading?
Well, so it's you chose an adjective earlier that I had been thinking about to describe myself, unrelated to this design. I am very sentimental. The chair is very sentimental. It was my dad's, and so I kept it around. And I don't sit in it very much, but it was hard for me to just part with it.
but now, because you do have the space, perhaps if you don't use it in the work kind of setting, it might be better in like the living room, so that way you're using it a bit more.
That's frequently what I thought about when I was thinking ahead to this session. I'm like, if they suggest other furniture pieces, if I really want to keep something, can I repurpose it in a different room, like you mentioned?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Again, it depends on the primary function of the room. If it was a reading room, I'd say, but it just sounds like, if you're anything like me, you want to be crafty and productive. And I don't know about you, but crafts require a lot of layout space.
They do.
And cubbies and drawers, and there's a whole bunch of accessories where you can buy those little plastic things that stack on top of each other. And I have a bunch of them for samples and that sort of thing. So there's so much on the market that you can do, but the more of the layout space that you can have, and then the more that you can use your vertical walls, your vertical environment, and think vertically. So this is, let's say, a table, and it's a chair. Badly drawn, I might add.
No, I can tell, like a little rolling chair.
And then cubbies of here, or shelving. I mean, you can have enough storage room and cubbies for days. For days. Again, it's just like this one, they tuck away. If you, usually closets are 2 feet. If you want to close the doors afterwards, then you can separate your work environment from everything else. And then it just becomes another room. So that's a possibility. you have a lot of screens and that sort of thing. So maybe this isn't, maybe this might be a craft area, and then you might want to use this as a computer table and spread out. But wraparound surfaces are just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wraparound table height, and then you can just spread out.
Where are your current outlets on this room? Do you have it on all 4 walls, or?
1, 2, 3. For sure 3. The 4th one could be hidden behind bookshelf, which I don't use because I do use a lot of the power strips. I have one outlet that's right underneath the window, so there is, about a foot. So there's an outlet there. There is an outlet where my desk is, and so I plug into there, and then there is an outlet on the wall with the closet.
Okay.
And there could be one where it's on the other side when you come in, but I don't think I use it, so it's hidden behind the bookshelf.
Yeah, the other thing about power bars is they're not all created equal, right? I have a designer what I like to call a designer power bar. So it plugs into the sides as well as on top.
Oh.
Cost me a small fortune, mind you, but there's so many outlets already concentrated rather than a power bar.
Okay.
There's just once you start doing a deep dive into power bars, and then obviously you want a surge protector. So that one has a surge protector, but it's got a lot of outlets all in one. And then obviously wiring is always a challenge. Those twist ties or those plastic twist ties is a good way to keep them bundled. Mm-hmm. And then you can tack them underneath. Since you're handy, by the way, you can tack them underneath the work surface.
Oh.
Or else there's even even IKEA, or every company seems to have a wire trough or a wire.
Yeah. So that way you can kind of like run it. You can kind of run it through here and then plug it into this outlet. And then as you're using video, you can kind of so like from a lighting point of view, the tricky thing in this case is obviously you don't have like the direct window lighting, so it's really coming in from the side. If you put there, so what that would mean is hold on. So what that would mean is if you look at the camera angle, and if you're positioning it, and again, for the camera angle, it could be similar to what you had before in terms of the whether you have one giant monitor, like a whole landscape, or you have multiple with your current laptop. But what you want to do definitely is make sure the laptop is using propped up, so it's like eye level height, because otherwise if it's down on the table, you might, for ergonomics, it isn't ideal, right? So over here, if you have the camera angle from here, the one good thing is instead of putting it directly in front, you can put it slightly on an angle like so, because what'll end up happening is it positions you in the center with this backdrop of this entire wall. So It's almost like framing you, and that allows you to kind of have a better angle in itself. And the one thing is, because you're getting a lot of light over here, you kind of want to balance it out with a bit of lighting that's very close to you, that's coming like right there from the corner. So
you're getting light on both sides. Exactly. Otherwise,
that makes
shadow, or else you start creating.
Exactly.
I know that you said you don't do Zoom for work, but I have to say it's starting to become an accepted standard. And I have my laptop raised, by the way. I've lifted it off, and then I need to buy a separate keyboard. But I have to say this is a lot better for ergonomics rather than developing what we call a laptop punch, right?
Yeah.
So for sure. And then people see you directly as opposed to your chin or, God, Najeeb and I have seen so many variables on bad pins and bad outfits and bad viewing angles, right?
Yeah, but like the good thing about this setup is because it does have this wraparound, it's kind of nice that even if you have like one chair that's like on wheels, you can kind of use that same chair to kind of go all around.
Yes.
So that way, you just have to pick something, you just push off the wall, go grab something, push off the wall, kind of like a, astronaut kind of thing. But yeah,
that could be fun. You have to be careful. I've worn a spot on my floor doing that, so you have to make sure you varnish the floor. So even this area could be a work area, right? And then this could be your crafty area, the messy crafts that you can close off if that's what you want to do. So this has a lot of possibilities. If you want to, I can show you another layout. Are you ready? Do you have questions, or do you want to show another layout? Do you want to see another layout?
I'm open to whatever you have.
Okay. So another layout, excuse me. And then you could have your little chair over here. But basically what you're doing is staring outside. But you're kind of in a U-shaped arrangement. Or else, if you want the window to the back of you, you can flip it and then look at the door.
Oh no! I'd like to look out the window.
Yeah. So again, it's another arrangement, and then if you wanted to, depending on the size of the desk, you could do another wrap around here and have another totally different work environment. Najeeb's little.
Is one benefit of doing this current layout is that if I did have other people working with me, they could come and sit at the same desk, but we could be sitting across from each other. So that would be one idea too.
Yeah. So you mean put a chair over here? Like,
yes. If I a team member, or if I wanted
called a partners arrangement. Partners.
Yeah. Like before the pandemic, I was at a networking event and someone mentioned that she was hosting people in her little office space. I'm like, what a good idea. I never thought about inviting my friends to work with me that work from home, that we could have our own little co-working, just the two of us or three of us. And that this current layout that you have would be conducive to that. So we're not, sitting across from each other, so we can look up and see each other as opposed to if we were sitting side by side. It's,
as long as you're all wearing masks and you're all kind of safe distancing, it works. But at any rate, you can see how you can, because you have such a large room. It's like 9'6" by 12 or something.
It is pretty large. I forgot what I.
Really, it's bigger than most offices. And then again, if you wanted to shove someone in here, But then again, you have to remember that all chairs kind of roll under the table, right?
Right. Okay.
So this just kind of gives you the kind of room that you need to maneuver. But certainly you have a capability of putting a lot of, or else even for crafts, what happens is that you can have one work area, two work areas, a sewing work area. I sew as well, by the way. And then you can just lock the door and leave it, and then it is what it is behind you. Or else, again, you can decide that the bedroom might be a work function and then have a Murphy bed or something like that.
Okay.
But in terms of maximizing on people's, this is a good way of doing it. And if all your furniture is on casters, then you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. Like, you have 3 different layouts now, and you can do whatever you want.
Also allows for storage underneath these tables as well, right? I think in terms of the painting, now
so I know that we don't have much time, and so how do you pick a color palette? I picked the color palette, like I mentioned, because there was a little bulletin board that I liked, and so I matched the paint to the fabric swatch, and not thinking about, is this conducive, this navy blue wall, conducive to working, reading?
I would, in this instance, I would do 180 and do a light wall color.
Okay.
I prefer warm grays or buff parchment colors.
Okay.
And I find those very conducive. If you want color, then just choose one wall, please.
Accent wall. Okay.
Yeah, and just one accent wall. I guess the one against the window would be a nice accent wall because it already has a nice shape to it, and then it's conducive to having some kind of color. But then again, you have to remember that your furnishings can be color. So if you wanted to do something 180, white furniture would be fun and fresh. But then again, like I said, the colors I recommended would look good with the wood that you have now, and you don't have to paint them. I really recommend rolling file cabinets.
Okay.
I have 2 or 3. Nothing I have here behind me, except for what's on the shelf there, is nailed down. So I have 2 or 3 filing cabinets. I call them R2D2s, and they're all on casters.
Okay.
Mind you, I haven't changed their position in a while, but nevertheless, they are on casters. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of empty space underneath those desks area, right? And that's, again, a great place for supplies and all that kind of thing. So you have so much storage potential. So even the little rolling filing cabinets could be wood, or else they can be a color compatible with the wood. I'm imagining that IKEA is your budget range.
I haven't actually shopped or thought about what prices I'd want to spend on new furniture. So.
But nevertheless, everything is doable, and you can, if you're handy and you wanted to repaint everything, it's a long, speaking personally, it's a long exercise, but nevertheless, it's doable. Or else, painting them but I would do like 180. I would get rid of the curtains. I don't think you need them anymore. If you wanted to do something fun, I would do those kind of mesh roller blinds. It's a nice, clean, crisp look as opposed to the Venetians. Okay. And then that way, if it's very sunny, you can still see shapes outside, unless you needed that window to be private and then you needed more privacy. So you might want a blackout roller blind. But a roller blind is really neat because you just yank it up and down, and then it's a nice, clean, crisp look. And then they usually have a valance that goes with it. Pardon me?
I said, okay, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, so cleaning up the curtains, unless, so if you were going to hang curtains for a window, you'd have a rod and you do the whole thing, and then have drapes.
Okay.
Full height, and that'll give it a nice drama if that's something you wanted to do. But it looks like you have privacy, and then you just want a nice, clean, crisp look. Would that be correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I'd for the next at least 5 to 10 years, another color scheme would be great. The other thing that I like doing is I like painting the baseboards the same color as the walls.
Ah, okay.
And I'll tell you why. It just makes it look taller, nice and clean. So unless you have 12-foot ceilings and you have baseboards that are like anywhere from 6 to 8 inches, it really doesn't serve you to have a high contrast base with walls. And a lot of times too, I paint the doors and the frames the same color as the wall.
Okay.
It's a nice fresh look. As opposed to having something contrast. Or else if I paint the doors and the frames, I paint them the same color, and then a slight variable from, if you want a bit of contrast, a slight variable from the walls. The point that I wanted to make is that you just want something that's 180 from what you already had, so that you know that you've made this
change. Yeah.
You know, you're just this a whole new kind of chapter. And then you'll find that the furniture will look way different as well. And if you organize all your things in cubbies or upper shelves, really makes a huge difference. It's nice and tidy even when you're not. Believe me, I know this to be true because I get messy with my files and stuff, right? But it always looks nice and clean. So I don't mind having people over or seeing the mess. And then at the end of the day, what I practice, which I highly recommend, is a clean desk policy.
Okay.
Nothing, and I learned this back, you might know the name, IBM, when I was working with them. It was a requirement, and I've kept it. So at the end of the day, I clean everything off. Maybe one corner of my desk might be super messy with everything, but nevertheless, it just ends your workday mentally and spiritually, and then the next day you can resume. And then it might make it easier for you to make a distinguish between your craft areas and then your work areas. So it becomes a bit of a ritual, if you know what I mean. it just helps distinguish work from ending the day.
Thanks for that suggestion. I've heard of it, but I've never tried implementing it. So I would need to incorporate that. That would definitely help.
Yeah.
When I don't do it, I am so stressed beyond belief. And it could just be a pencil in the middle of the desk.
Well,
It makes a difference.
To be frank, I had to like clean before we got on this session because I'm like, they can't see my desk like this. That's how it is all the time.
But what happens is that you start implementing other things to put away those things.
Right.
So for example, I have an antique tray that I put all the pencils and papers and things, but at least it's segregated and it's grouped, right? And it looks halfway decent. It's from the 50s and I inherited it and it looks great, but it's off to the side. So anything that I do creates a vignette. So even your junk looks elevated to an art status. And that's one of the reasons why I like cubbies. Junk tends to get elevated. It looks classier. So whenever you kind of group things, it always looks better. And then I'd highly recommend some plants, by the way.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The other benefit of having plants, and obviously especially if it's like this kind of design where you're expecting to have a lot more people, it helps with soundproofing and just absorbing. So if that is a design that you're thinking of, just perhaps thinking a bit more of having instead of hard surfaces, just having a few softer surfaces. So whether it is something like plants or on the walls, just like some cushions, like sound absorbing panels. Boards. Yeah, bulletin boards, or
you can you can pick a fabric and hand wrap your own bulletin boards, and it which is what I've done, elevates it completely. So it's not just an ordinary bulletin board. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, all good. And if you need even more, you can even add soundproofing. I mean, I don't anticipate you will, but just in case, if you feel like you're going to need to do some calls, you can add like soundproofing up to the ceiling as well. So it's out of sight, but at least you have that dampening instead of just a hard surface over there.
So you see the nice vignette that Najeeb has created? You've got soundproofing behind you, correct? The gray panels?
Which?
You. Behind.
Oh,
Najeeb.
Myself. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right
and then you see his bookshelves. He's got a little plant. He's got his nice book. And he's got all of his books color gradated. And then he's got 3 plants. So here, everything here he has is very stylized, but it looks nice and calming when you're looking at him. And he's got
it does, and I have seen that background. I've been on the calls with him, and I've always admired it. So
yeah, he's done a good job, and we've managed to convince some of our other friends to do that, and already they look more professional.
So based on these 3 designs, what are you kind of leaning more towards, Carol?
I'm not sure. I know, like now I have more data.
Yeah. And by the way, you can like obviously you're gonna get we're gonna send you this, and you can obviously think about more. But it at least gives you like 3 different ideas of kind of like a jumping off point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I hadn't really. As each design was presented, then it gave me more ideas. And then like that third one, I was like, oh, I never really thought about that, but that has, its other added benefits, right? If I did want to have other people, hadn't really thought about it. It was just that design lends itself, I think, to having my mini team of friends working.
Now you can also do that with the second space as well, right? You can have like the 2 and like 1 chair there, 1 chair there, 1 chair here, once this is gone kind of thing. So. And just keeps
everybody
it more
would
open.
be facing a wall, by the way, but nevertheless.
Yeah. So, yeah.
There's just so many possibilities. And
there are. So I'm glad that, you're able to give me some good choices. Because on my own, obviously, I haven't done anything for 20 years. So.
Well, you've let it gestate for a while. You've been living with it and thinking with it. But it'd be nice to have a fresh start to 2020.
I am excited about that.
There's enough downtime. Now, you said that at the end of June that you would have, or is it the beginning of June? You would have some downtime to do a few things?
I am in a down period right now. I don't have a contract right now, and it's somewhat by choice. I may be signing another one soon, but this is the perfect time for me to make the changes. I don't have any other pressing obligations. All my obligations are personal. So.
And stain the wood for the furniture.
Yeah.
Purging things, and then so what I recommend when you purge, do it in baby steps, because I find it emotionally draining, hugely emotionally draining, because then you look at the award and you think about the award and should I keep it, shouldn't I keep it? But purging is a huge exercise as well. Don't underestimate it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never thought about wraparound desks, so I want to definitely research that, because I like that idea. So if I did that, then I wouldn't be keeping this furniture. And I mean, I could still stain it and put it elsewhere, but I wouldn't keep it in this room if I were going to go with the wraparound desk. And I like that idea. It's something new for me to consider. So I'll definitely look into that. And
Awesome. Was this helpful for you, Carol?
Yes, it was. I'm so
Solid.
excited.
Great to hear. Hope you liked this episode of the Home Office for Success series. If you want to find out more about interior design, check out DoloresPian.com. And if you want to know more about team culture, team building, and remote work, check out Teamland.com. If you want to learn more or see more episodes, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and would love it if you liked and commented below. I'd love to know what was your favorite part about this episode. Thanks for watching. See you soon.